What's up, everyone, and welcome to Project XTalk, an Xbox podcast, episode number 134, presented by Save the Game Media. I'm your host, Kevin, and I am joined once again by my co-host, Mr. Physical Copy. How you doing today, Ethan?
I'm doing good. I'm sweating, Kevin, because
Sweating.
we talked offline a little bit. I got these hot mustard Doritos. It's part of Doritos' new line of flavors. They got the sweet barbecue, sweet and tangy barbecue. They got a buffalo ranch, which I think has existed before, and hot mustard. I'm trying these. For anyone that likes horseradish or wasabi or any of that stuff, this is for you. It's an acquired taste, Kevin. So I'm sweating a little bit. I'm going to try and put those to the side for the rest of this show. But other than that, I'm doing really good. How are you, man?
I'm all right. It's getting warmer here
Yeah,
in New York.
it's a
My
balmy
computer,
65 out.
it's like 70 something here, but
Woo!
my computer's doing a lovely thing where if my ring light is plugged in, and we kind of diagnosed this last time, right? And I went to our good old PC support, Lee Navarro, all right, the
Yeah.
fearless leader of the Phoenix Overdrive Extra Life team,
God
which
bless.
we'll be a part of this year. So if you wanna send Phoenix Overdrive some donations, but anyway, he diagnosed he also thinks that the ring light is drawing too much power. No idea why it suddenly would start messing up. But the solution is I just gotta get one of those little USB docks, plug it into the wall, and
Uh,
just have it down on my PC. But I don't have that
what a
today, so
mess.
this is the lighting we're going with. All right, this all
You look fine,
natural
Kevin.
look. This all natural look.
Same
We're
here.
both in
I got
white shirts.
beautiful
This is a
sun.
weird thing going on.
Yeah, I never wear a white shirt. I never wear a white shirt, and here we are.
No. But you guys aren't here to talk about that. You're here to talk about Xbox because this is an Xbox podcast and we post every Thursday. Um, I know I've been saying live sometimes recorded. It's seeming like maybe recorded at least every other week.
Every other week, I
Every
think
other
that's
week,
going to
I'm
be the thing.
thinking. We can probably, it's just a few Thursdays have been
Last
busy.
Thursday was your fault,
That was
Kevin.
me. That was me. That was me. I agree.
How dare
It
you have
wasn't
a
me. It
life,
wasn't me. It wasn't me.
weirdo?
It's all you.
Mm.
But no, every Thursday right here on YouTube. And I'm going to start putting podcast services Thursday as well. Match it up with the day and date.
Ooh.
Unless it's a live episode, then it'll be Friday. So, okay,
Mm.
it's going to be that whatever day is on
Just
YouTube,
subscribe to the
it'll
feed.
be
It'll
there.
ping your
Okay.
phone. We
It will.
got you
It
guys.
will.
We got you.
Notifications on, and then leave us those 5-star reviews on Apple, Spotify. I know some of you've been doing it. I really appreciate it. I see those numbers going up. You are not forgotten. Thank you so much. It does help us. If you want to come interact with us more, please come join the Discord. That link is down below. And if you want to support us further, get early access to Save the Game media content and exclusive post shows like the one we're going to do right after this episode, come join patreon.com/save the game media. Choose a tier that's right for you, like our current Patreon supporters. So thank you to Bucky Blue, Hopple, Amon, Fabulous Brianna, Brianna's mom, Brianna's brother, Brianna's wife, Nikolai at Night, Cypher, Primus, Brendan Myers, Marcus O'Neill, Lillian, Mimi J, The Snack Network, David Hotright, Dave Harp, and the Xbox Expansion Pass. Thank you all for your support. We appreciate each and every one of you. But Ethan, let's start like we do every week by going around the room and asking one question. My question is, what have you been playing, my friend?
I've only been playing Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Since we last talked, I've worked 3 days, 44 hours worth of work, and I got one night to play video games. So it's been more Jedi Fallen Survivor or Jedi. Yeah, Jedi Fallen
Yeah,
Survivor. I think
no, just Jedi, no fallen,
Jedi
just no fallen.
Survivor. Yeah, still
Mm.
still trying to figure
He's
that out.
delirious, folks.
Yeah, but the game's still incredible. Every time I think I've started to get the hang of everything, a new mechanic gets introduced or the world gets just a little bit bigger, and I'm like, oh my god, I got to explore all this now. Two more fighting stances have been unlocked that are unique that I haven't seen before. If anyone watched the new trilogy of Star Wars, if you remember Kylo Ren's lightsaber, it has the hilts going out. It looks like an old style Scottish claymore. That's basically what you find at one point. So it's a brand new stance where your lightsaber is long as hell and you're doing really heavy, big attacks. I don't really like it. I think it's slow, but the attacks are really powerful. It's good to use against big bosses and stuff like that. Another cool mechanic that was introduced is Cal Kestis now can use a blaster. This is one of the very few instances where a Force user uses a blaster weapon
I don't know
in
how I
any
feel
video
about
games.
that. I don't know
Yeah,
how I feel
it's
about
interesting.
that.
It's a cool stance, though. You're holding your blaster pistol in the left hand, holding your lightsaber in the right hand. You can customize your blaster, much like you can customize your lightsaber in this game. So it kind of opens up that whole avenue of doing things. It's really cool. I haven't used it too much. I just think it's a cool little novelty
You
thing. I'm still sticking with just the two two swords in each
You
hand.
know
So,
what that stance is I played Like a Dragon Ishin this year.
oh yeah,
You had the gun and the samurai sword in one hand, and you just would shoot enemies, slice, and that is what
hmm
that stance is.
yeah, it's basically the same thing. But yeah, it's really cool. A lot of new enemy types being introduced in this. I don't know if I'm even in mid game at this point. This game's so big. I might be mid game. I might be right before mid game. But tons of new enemy types, tons of really cool bosses. They have a bounty hunter mechanic now. So there's a bounty person at the cantina that's sort of one of your central base of operations. You can go and pick up bounty pucks from her, and collect rewards and customize your gun a lot with those rewards and stuff. So a lot of really cool mechanics, a lot of great side quests being introduced, a lot of just really rich lore in this world, a lot of stuff to do. So this game's definitely going to be a lot of hours. And I've been Sam Heaney's been telling me that he's saying in the Discord you haven't seen anything yet. So I'm excited to see what he's talking about.
I've heard there's some good twists. All right, that's like not just one, multiple good twists, and I've seen people say that they've beaten the game like 40 to 80 plus hours. So
Woo!
it can be a
It's a
pretty
big boy.
lengthy, yeah,
Love
lengthy
it.
game for sure. You know what isn't a lengthy game though? The
What's that?
game I beat this weekend, Ravenlock.
Oh yes, we talked about this last week. Talk to me.
Yes, so it dropped on Game Pass on Thursday. I It's a very short game. I
Mhm.
got the 100% and 1K gamer score in 3 hours and 45 minutes.
Nice.
It's very short. I will say it's I would describe this as baby's first adventure game. It comes from the team over at Coco Cucumber, and they are the team behind Echo Generation, which was well received. This unfortunately didn't get the reviews I think it deserves. It's sitting in the 60s, I think high 60s. I think it's up to a 69 last I looked. Um, I would put it a little higher because I think there's a lot to love about this game. I love the voxel art style. I love the story and the interactions. Basically, you're put into the role of Ravenlock. That's the character's name. She. It's weird because when you start the game, you're a girl in the real world and you're helping your parents move. And the task is like, oh, go help your dad unload the moving truck. Go help your mom set the table, and then you get transported Alice in Wonderland style into this world. Quickly you get dubbed like you're the hero, go save us. And you travel like the fast travel in this game is between mirrors. So like you find every time you find a new mirror, you can travel to other mirrors that you found throughout the world. There's a level up system. There's bombs and potions, and it's a lot of I would say old school Zelda stuff where they get like you smash little pots to get gems, which you're going to use to buy stuff, your equipment later on. You get different abilities. My biggest drawback for this game is the combat because it's a hack and slash game and they really mean it. There's very little depth to this combat. Like if you have abilities and some of them are cool animation wise, but you honestly could just mash the X button and get through the entire game. And like as long
Right.
as you're dodging, you're going to be fine. Um I just really love Alice in Wonderland type stories. I played that Alice into Darkness game or whatever it's called, Madness into Madness, which I think is on Game Pass still, or maybe it left. But I like the movies a few years back. I just really like the whole aesthetic and the world that's going on here. Very, very easy 1K gamer score too.
Yeah.
Like you will just get the majority of the achievements by playing the game, doing the story, and then the other ones are like get to max level, which I'd be surprised if you beat the game and you couldn't get to max level. It's just everything is set right there for you. So there's really no reason not to get the 1K if you beat the game. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I would put it in probably the high 70s for me, just because it's a very fun experience. Like it's short, sweet. There were no technical issues. Like I don't really see what people could ding this game for, except the fact that it is a little simple.
Yeah, one of the things that's drawn me the most about this game, something that really caught my eye, is definitely the aesthetic of this game, how it looks. How does the sort of overall art style of this game fit with the story that's being presented to you? And is there a good fit there? How are the colors? How are the textures? Can you give me some more details
I
about that?
I think the world's beautiful. You'll get tons of different types of environments. You'll have some castle interior that you go through. You go through some spooky woods. You'll be
Ooh,
inside of
spooky
like a
woods.
you're gonna go inside of a cave at one point, which has like little arms crawling out of it, which are like the souls of people that like a witch has stolen. Each area has a very unique art style, and like it fits the tone of Alice in Wonderland. Like
Nice.
if you're familiar with that, you're gonna feel right. You're gonna be like, this fits. Everything looks great. It makes sense. There's references to the fairy tale of Alice in Wonderland that like it all comes together really
That's
beautifully, in my
awesome.
opinion. Yeah. So I can't say enough good things about it. I know our friend Luke Lore is going to have no, nope, nope. He's nope.
Nope.
Scratch what
Nope.
I said. Scratch what I said. He's
Nope.
trying to get them on. He hasn't. So go on their show, guys. Go in XCP. Their developers. Go on XCP.
Be awesome.
Because I would love to hear about the development of this game. But
Yeah, definitely a game I'm gonna look into jumping into. Maybe my 3-day weekend that's coming up. Maybe I'll jump
you
into it
can
then.
honestly knock. I think I'd knocked it out in 2-ish play sessions. Like
Perfect.
it's not
It's
long
like
at all.
watching a movie. Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, it is baby's first adventure game. Like you get quests, and it's like you get tons of quests at once. But if you just go to the next area, chances are they'll become like, oh, you get this item, and then like, oh, if I go back
Right.
here, I can expand this. Like it's very simple. It's very good though.
Awesome.
Uh, Last game I want to talk to you about is Tokyo Xanadu EX Plus.
You always hit me with these, Kevin. What's going on here?
So this is I here's how this happened. All right. I was like, I hit up some people. I was like, guys, you want to try Redfall a little more? And everyone gave me a resounding no. And I was like,
Nice.
okay, understandable. So I hopped in and played maybe 15 minutes, and I was like, I can't do it. And so I just uninstalled it.
Oof.
Yeah, yeah. I just couldn't play it anymore. And that's if you're enjoying it, great. As I said, I know a lot of people are loving Redfall despite all the issues. But I was like, I guess I'm going back on my JRPG grind. So I booted up Tokyo Xanadu EX Plus, which I got for $11 on the Golden Week sale from the PlayStation Network. This is another Falcom JRPG from the people that made the Ease series and the Trails of series, I should say. I was going to say Cold Steel, but they make all the Trails games. I would describe this game as very persona inspired. It takes place in a Tokyo high school. You have a lot of those spending time with classmates to increase your bonding levels. It kind of it's not as good as Ease or Trails. The combat feels just a little clunky,
Is it the
especially
we have ease at home type of game?
kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of, where it's like I expected it to feel the same because they make a great action JRPG, but they were like, we can't make it be that quality, so we're just gonna have it feel a
Right.
little off. And I want to say the character models feel like they just took the Trails characters and switched their hair. I'm not even kidding. You want to know what lends credence to that is there's a character in Trails of Cold Steel, all four of them, named Toa. She's the student council president. There's a character in Tokyo Xanadu EX called Toa, which is the exact same character model, exact same name. Just I'm sure it's a little Easter egg for their other games, but there's tons of characters that just look like they had their hair swapped. Like I'm like, I get it, Falcom. You have 70 people in the studio. You wanted to put out something different. You probably can't be affording to make a tons of different models, so you're just gonna do what you
So
got. But
I'm googling this for us, right? To look
mhm.
to see Trails of Cold Steel, Toa, and yeah, it's the same character. Like
Yeah,
they didn't even change the hairstyle, Kevin. You're
no,
talking
no,
about
they didn't.
hairstyle, it's the same
No, they didn't
hairstyle.
change the hairstyle for that one. The other
It's
characters,
the
I think they
same
changed the hair.
person.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
great.
yeah. No, it is the same person. Yeah,
And
yeah.
then there's literally a female with blonde hair
hmm
who's the same character as well, just different colored eyes. That's great.
Yeah, yeah,
I
it's
love it.
saving money, cutting costs where where you got it. So this is a story about like these weird demon portals opening up around the city when people
Ooh.
have negative emotions, and then you go through a dungeon and you kill the boss at the end. I don't really know. I'm a few hours into it. I'm liking it so far. It's a very Kevin JRPG style. I just like Falcom games. Like I knew what I was getting into.
Hell
it's
yeah.
hitting that itch. It's not gonna take me 60 something. I mean, it could, but I'm not going. It's not gonna take me that long. So this will lead me probably right into like Diablo 4 because I wanted to play Redfall through May, but that's not happening. So I needed something
It's
else.
definitely not happening.
And the last thing I want to talk about, because I couldn't talk about it last week actually, and I should mention this, is that I reviewed Ease 9 Monster of Nox for the PlayStation 5. Thank you to NIS America for sending us a code for that review. I played my full review is up on the channel now. Go click that. It's on it should be on the No Limits feed as well. I don't actually remember if Taylor put it up, but it's on YouTube if you want to catch that. And I played the game originally last year. I played the PS4 version. This is a very minimal upgrade. I
Mm.
struggle to really see the difference most times. Like it looks a little prettier, but in terms of actually like because there's no upgrade path. Like if you have the PS4 version, you can't just upgrade to the PS5 version. You have to pay $40 and buy the PS5 version again. It's on PS Plus, so I said like if you haven't played it and you want to just have all the DLC included, you're not subscribed to PS Plus, like I think it's worth it because it's a great game. But if you have PS Plus or you've played it before, like just stick with the PS4 version probably.
Do you find that that's the norm for some of these PS5 upgrades for these JRPGs? Because I know you've reviewed, I think, one or two JRPGs in the past, their PS5 upgrades. Is that a similar situation with those ones as well?
Yeah, so I said a pretty similar thing with Ease 8 Lacrimosa of Dana when that got its PS5 upgrade.
Right.
It was basically just they turned the colors up. Nothing really changed other than
Turn
that.
the
But like
brightness up, Kevin. That's all you
yeah,
gotta do.
I recommend like listen, I love them. I will recommend them to anyone that hasn't played them. And if you want to play the best versions, like all the DLC, all the like the best frame rates, best resolution, like get the PS5 versions. But if you're just looking to experience the game, like they were on PS Plus, like you can get the PS4 versions probably cheaper. This seems to be a very weird thing that and listen, Anna Ask America, love you. Thank you for all the support you show us. But this seems to be a pretty common thing they're doing. Like I just bought the Caligula Effect 2 because it was on
Yep.
sale on Golden Week. I bought it, and then the day after I bought it, they announced a PS5 version.
Oh,
And I was like, can I get a refund, Sony? Like, I haven't played the game. And they
yeah.
were like, no,
No.
all you downloaded it. All sales are once you download the game. And I'm like, oh, but my PlayStation automatically downloads games. Like, you don't like what?
Sony caring about its consumers? Come on.
Yeah. So they didn't care.
Ridiculous.
It's honestly not that big of a deal. Like, could I probably have gotten a review code for the Caligula and like save some money? Yes. I'm still gonna play it. Like, it really doesn't matter that much to me. Like, it's not that big of a deal, but it does seem to be a trend for NIS America for their games to be putting out these things. They do have
Yep.
some new Western ports coming that I'm excited for in the fall. So hopefully, fingers crossed. We'll see if I can get some codes for those and enjoy some JRPG.
Absolutely.
You're a JRPGs, tell you what, man.
Let's do it.
That's what I'm doing. But that's all I've been playing. If you want my full thoughts, go check out the review. Like I said, on the channel now. But Ethan, we have a lot to talk about today.
Sure. Yeah.
And there's really only one topic. So if anyone was hoping for timestamps, you're probably out of luck because we're probably going to spend the majority of the show talking about this. And that is the Phil Spencer interview. So in a recent interview with Kind of Funny's XCast, Phil Spencer addressed the Redfall issues. He took accountability for them. He talked a little bit about the CMA deal, the Activision Blizzard stuff, and he admitted that Xbox Game Studios didn't really work with Arcane on Redfall. Um, so there's a lot to go into here. I don't know if we want to go in order or if we want to jump around, like just talk about the big stuff. Because I know that firstly they asked him like how you feeling about the CMA, Activision Blizzard, and he kind of reiterated that they still feel confident. They're going to appeal the decision, and that he thinks that mainly it's based on their ruling is based on a market that doesn't exist yet, right? So I don't know if you have anything
Right.
you want to touch on with the CMA part of the interview before we go into the more detailed stuff.
Yeah, I think he's just saying what a lot of us think, and I think we touched on that last week about how I think these governmental regulators don't have a fundamental grasp of the industry, or they just don't care. They're just doing this to try and break things up and put a feather in their cap. But I do want to point out first of all that this was a great interview, kind of funny, absolutely killed it. That XCast team killed it. They went in there. I think I watched the Kind of Funny Games daily that came after that, and Greg Miller was talking to, oh my god, why can't I
Snowbike
remember?
Mike.
Snowbike Mike. Thank you. Greg Miller was talking to Snowbike Mike a little bit about what were you feeling going into that? And Snowbike Mike said when they had booked Phil Spencer, initially it was supposed to be a positive episode. It was like, oh, Redfall's about to come out. We're going to talk about the future of Activision Blizzard King coming to Xbox. And all of this stuff came out right before he came on,
Hmm.
and Redfall flopped on top of it. So obviously he went in there having to completely change up the game plan. And I think they did a great job asking some tough questions. So I definitely want to dive into this whole interview point by point with you because I
Yeah.
think there's a lot to talk about with this.
Yeah, there certainly is. I know I thought it was a great interview as well. Before I was a little skeptical before because I was like, okay, is this going to be another one of those easy ball PR
Yeah.
moves? And to Kind of Funny's credit, I think they asked good questions. I don't think Phil shied away from answering. That it was it
It
was it
definitely
was
helped
good
that Phil
journal.
opened up a
It
lot.
was good journalism from
Yeah.
I like Kind of Funny. I do think sometimes they take they're not as
Callisto Protocol.
yeah, they don't push back on things as much as they should. But this, I can't fault them for the interview here, and I can't fault Phil. I know Paris Lilly told the Iron Lords this weekend that Xbox didn't limit what they could ask. Like they had full reign. And as you said, it
It's
was meant
impressive.
to be a more positive. It was supposed to be a celebration of Redfall. It was supposed to be,
Yeah.
I think it was supposed to be about like ID at Xbox and all this other like positive
Yeah.
stuff. But then
Showcase coming up.
switched, and Gary Whitta mentioned like we had a similar issue when Halo Infinite got delayed, if when he came
Yeah.
on Animal Talking back in the day, and it's a whole thing. So Phil's credit for going on it, but let's actually get into what was discussed here because there is a lot. So first, I want to start with him talking about Redfall and Arcane Austin and whether or not Xbox supported them the way they needed to. So, quote, Phil said, "There's nothing that's more difficult for me than disappointing the Xbox community. And just to watch the community lose confidence, be disappointed, I'm disappointed. I'm upset with myself. We'll revisit our process back to the announcement of 60 FPS, and then we weren't shipping 60 FPS. That was our punch in the chin, rightfully, a couple of weeks ago. The critical response was not what we wanted. I'll pick myself up. What can we learn? How can we be better? One thing I'll fight is, quote, what went wrong? He said, there's clearly quality and execution things we can do, but one thing I won't do is push against creative aspirations of our teams. I'm a huge supporter of Arcane Austin. Their track record is awesome. I love a lot of their games that they've built. They didn't hit their own internal goals when it launched. I think it's maybe a little simplistic to say if you would have just delayed it 3 months, the core creative of the game would have been delivered on something that was different than what it was. So let's stop there because I think there's
Yeah.
quite a few things in just in that sentence to break down. And I know you were very positive about one aspect in particular about this statement in our DM. So I'm going to open the floor to you. What do you think about what Phil's saying here?
Yeah. I love everything we say. And we talked about last week from a viewer question of whether we thought Phil Spencer should be leaving as the head of Xbox. And I think this initial commentary from him on that interview is exactly why I said no. He talks about how he wants to maintain that hands-off approach with the studios, and he's never going to punish creative aspirations from the studios, right? And I think that's really impressive that he's going out and trying to assure the rest of the studios that, hey, things are going to fail. I'm not going to tighten down the screws just because you guys fail in a game, right? Like I'm not going to start shutting down projects and start putting my fingers in everything just because a game failed. And don't blame these developers. Arcane Austin is a great team. They've made some great video games. They obviously have a lot of talent. They just didn't follow through with this game. I'm sure they're going to be working really hard going forward and trying to meet a lot of different goals going forward to try and salvage what they can out of this game. But what Phil Spencer is doing is taking a lot of that flack. And that's what you need to do as a leader. And I think Phil Spencer here is showing a lot of class and a lot of leadership, that a lot of big executives at big companies probably wouldn't do, right? A lot of people would probably cancel this interview. If all of these PR nightmares was happening right before an interview, a lot of CEOs or heads of whatever department, they're going to be like, we're not going to do this interview. We got too much work to do. We got to figure this out and line our ducks in a row. So again, shout out to Phil Spencer for actually doing this interview and taking all of this flack. And I think he did a great job of defending the studio here and saying it's not necessarily their fault. It's no single person's fault, but the buck stops with him.
I know it wasn't in the quote I just read, but a thing he did say was he felt Xbox Game Studios internal support, the team that goes to their other sites and other studios and helps them make games as best they could, didn't really get to Arcane Austin, right? Like Redfall
Right.
wasn't really a hands-on project, and he went into explaining which we've kind of mentioned in the past is that Bethesda and the ZeniMax studios that came in aren't technically Xbox game studios, right? And I use air quotes for that because they sit laterally next to the Xbox Game Studios
Right.
family. They are under Xbox though, and they reflect on Xbox. And I think
Hmm.
he owns that in this. He knows that we we messed up as Xbox. We messed up. We didn't go support this team, even though they're not Xbox Game Studios. Like I said, air quotes. They should have gotten the support earlier. They should have sent teams like the Coalition, who have experience with
Yep.
Unreal Engine and making things run beautifully at 60 FPS in big environments like Gears 5. They should have
Hmm.
sent those teams, people that knew this engine, to go assist Arcane Austin. And apparently that didn't happen. This wasn't apparently a project that Matt Booty oversaw. This was very much of a Bethesda. And I'm not trying to say that Xbox needs to be hands on with these. That is one thing that like when Phil said that, I honestly couldn't believe that like Matt Booty himself, other leaders at Xbox just left them to their own devices because you
Yeah.
bought ZeniMax, yes, because you trust them as a publisher. You trust them to get out good games, but you still need to have oversight of what they're doing. You own them now. You take responsibility for them.
Right, at least give them that support structure for them to go to in case there's ever any issues or they need anything, right? And I
Mhm.
think the fact that Phil Spencer is coming out and saying it directly to the public, saying this is where we messed up. I think we can be assured that it's an area that's going to be worked on in the
It
future
has to
with
be.
other projects, right? If he's coming out, the head of Xbox, and saying this flat out, this is where we messed up, it's got to get fixed. And I guarantee you, everyone at Xbox is scrambling to look at the data and figure out where they went wrong there and try and fix that with whatever other studios they're going to be pulling in or any studios that they have now. They're probably looking at different. It's not that they're putting their fingers into things. And I think Phil Spencer brought up the point during that interview that it was really good. He said we have teams like Rare that are going out making Sea of Thieves. We have teams like Obsidian that are making Pentiment. We have teams like
Mhm.
Tango making Hi-Fi Rush, and these are all games that you and I have talked about, these off the wall games that these studios would probably never make if it was any other company, doing it, because they would have said, this is not what you guys do. This is not how we're going to make the money here. Xbox has been promoting those things. They're going to continue to promote those things, but they have to make sure these support structures are up for these studios when they come into the Xbox family so that they can go and drink from the well whenever they want.
Personally, I love the creative projects we've been getting from the Xbox Game Studio side. I love the hi-fi rushes, those smaller projects that are coming out, and I would hate to see the creativity of those studios taken away from them. I want them, whether the project is smaller or bigger, to be able to make what they want to make, and Phil backs that up. So he is on board with what I think the majority of the Xbox user base
Yep.
wants that creativity, wants the studios not to be pigeonholed into, you're gonna make this and only this going forward. But it blew my mind that he seemed to have an epiphany that we should have supported them. And I get it. Going forward, I don't think there's going to be any more issue. There shouldn't be any more issues with support like that. Like, you should work as a cohesive unit. But how did you not figure that out months and months ago? How is this not something? Redfall was your one more thing at your Xbox
Yeah.
showcase, and then to come out to say, "Well, we didn't really support them on it." That is crazy to me. I think that is a huge mistake, a huge oversight, and I don't know how
Yeah.
that got past anyone.
You wonder if it was just a general attitude of, "Oh, they'll be fine." You know, I mean,
That's
it's
what it comes off to me
Arcane.
as.
It's Arcane at Bethesda.
They
What
just put out
they
Deathloop, like, we don't have
right.
to worry.
Not the same studio, but Arcane proper, yeah. I mean, it's just it is weird. It just seems like a complete oversight, like you said, and it's probably not something that's regularly done. I think they just probably put a little too much trust in this, or just were too focused on other projects. Maybe they were just their attention was too diverted towards like Starfield, for example, and
Which he
maybe
did
it's just an oversight.
he did say they got to Starfield early in development and
Right.
have been assisting on Starfield. He said, "Don't believe him until you're actually playing it," but
Great statement right there. I
he
love that.
he did say that they were helping with Starfield, and that kind of gives me more confidence. But then later on, Mike asked him, will we have a definitive statement about whether Starfield is 30 versus 60 frames at the showcase? And he said yes. And I feel like if I have one critique,
Was
you
that at the showcase, or did he ask him if we were gonna get that before launch?
he said this summer. The question was, will we know this summer? Which I took to mean the showcase during the
Okay.
Starfield direct.
Yeah. Okay.
That could come out after that, but it needs to be before launch,
Yes.
well before
Well
launch.
before.
My only critique of this point, and I will say this, is Phil could have said right then and there definitively what the frame rate was. He could have addressed people's concerns.
They probably don't know yet. I guarantee you that they're still working on that, and, I'm sure they have a lot like, they have those internal targets that they have to hit, right? Like, he talked about those a little bit with game development, and I'm sure Starfield is moving towards those internal targets right now when it comes to its frames, and I'm sure they will have an answer shortly, but he probably doesn't have a definitive answer right now, and also, to be fair, if I was him, I wouldn't want to pigeonhole myself into a statement right away.
If he
This is
if he
probably the
says
worst time in the world to pigeonhole yourself
if
into
he
a
says
statement like that.
30, that's a good point. If he says 30, it's more bad news on top of an already crap
Yeah,
week
and if
for
he says 60
Xbox.
and they don't deliver, oof,
That's
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 bad.
a fair point. Fair point. But we will have that addressed. I'm going to get
Oh yeah,
into the probably the biggest quote that people have been running with, and I know I think I'm putting it on the thumbnail for this video. Don't sue me, okay? This is how
don't hate the
YouTube
player,
works.
hate the game.
Yeah, exactly. But Phil also discussed how Xbox views their place in the quote console wars, and in short, they're not in it, stating, quote, "We're not in the business of out consoling Sony or out consoling Nintendo. There isn't really a great solution or win for us. And I know that that will upset a ton of people, but the truth of the matter is, when you're third place in the console marketplace and the top two players are as strong as they are and have, in certain cases, a very discreet focus on doing deals and other things that kind of make being Xbox hard for us as a team, that's on us, not on anyone else." I see it out there. I see the commentary that if you just build great games, everything would turn around. It's just not true that if we go off and build great games, all of a sudden you're going to see the console share shift in a dramatic way. We lost the worst generation to lose in the Xbox One generation, where everyone built their digital library of games. The idea that if we just focused more on great games on our console, that somehow we're going to win the console race, I think that doesn't relate to the reality of most people. This is the first generation where the big games they're playing were games that were available last gen, where you think about Fortnite and Roblox and Minecraft. The continuity from generation to generation is so strong. I see a lot of pundits out there that kind of want to go back to the time when we all had cartridges and discs, and every new generation was a clean slate and you could switch the whole console share. That's just not the world that where we are today. There's no world where Starfield is an 11 out of 10 and people are selling their PS5s. That's not going to happen. That was a mouthful, but I have a lot to say about this because I see a lot of people taking what he said out of context, but I want to know,
Absolutely.
and we have a question about this. It came
Mhm.
from Sean Capri. Well, really came from Donnie Reese over at PSVG, who was on the Xbox Drive last week over our friends at Carpool Gaming. Before this interview, the night before, they were talking about how do you fix this? And Donnie repeatedly said, make good games. That was his solution. And then Phil came out and said this completely saying, no, Donnie, I don't agree with you. So,
Yeah.
Ethan, I want to know your opinion. Is it as simple as make great games?
No, it is not as simple as make great games. It is a massive part of it. Let me make it clear. Making great games is a big part, obviously, of having a video game brand. Like we go to Xbox. We grew up with Xbox. We love Xbox because of Gears, because of Fable, because of Halo. These are the video games we grew up with, the games we love, and we stay in the ecosystem because we love the games that Xbox produces, right? But in the modern era, I feel like our game consoles are so much more than just game consoles. This is my version of social media. I don't have a lot of social media. I use Xbox. I talk to all my friends on Xbox. I play games with people on Xbox. I watch all my TV and movies on my Xbox. Xbox is so much more than video games, just as PlayStation is so much more than video games, so much as the Nintendo Switch is so much more than video games. It's a culture surrounding these consoles. And I think you have to build that ecosystem that pulls people in and it keeps them there because it's a comfortable place for us to hang out. It's a comfortable place for us to hang out with our friends, to spend time with our families. That's what makes a great video game console, I think. So, no, it's not just great games. If it was just great games, we would just have gray boxes with nothing but a UI that lets us click on the game, right? We, like he said, we would go back to the era of you just pop a disc in and it goes straight to the video game. We would have nothing else. I spend so much time on my dashboard looking through different marketplaces, looking at movies to buy, going on all my streaming services, hanging out with my wife using my Xbox, talking to buddies on Xbox Live while playing Fall Guy. Like there's so much other things going on around while you're using your Xbox than just the video game. Again, the video games are probably the most important aspect because that's what make it. I mean, if there were no video games, why would I be using the Xbox as an entertainment center? It's way more expensive than anything else I could use. But it's not the catch all be all. There needs to be more than just great video games.
I think this is probably the part of the interview when I heard it, I knew there's the clickbait headline.
Yep,
There's the fanboy
and it
console
happened
wars. And it has happened in droves. The amount
big
of
time.
people that came out immediately saying Phil Spencer admits defeat in the console wars. Phil Spencer says Xbox doesn't care about making great
Can I
games.
can I make a point real quick? It's not about him admitting defeat in the console wars. I think Xbox is just self-aware that it's not going to outsell Sony. And I think it's comfortable being there. I don't think Xbox has any aspirations of this generation or maybe even the next generation or the generation after that of outselling Sony or Nintendo anytime soon. They're building their marketplace, they're getting their audience, and they're making a crap load of money off of that audience. Just because they're not number one doesn't mean they're not extremely profitable, right? And making a great ecosystem. I just needed to say something that
No,
frustrated me seeing that.
no, my biggest annoyance came, and I've seen it from several content creators, big and small content creators, who are out there saying Xbox doesn't care about making great games. And Phil himself, after the interview, responded to a tweet that said, Xbox doesn't need to focus on making great games to win the console wars. It just needs to focus on making great games. And he said, I agree with that. And everyone's missing his point here. His point is we're not in the console wars because that's not our strategy anymore.
Right.
Xbox doesn't, it's not that they don't believe, it's they know they're not going to sell the 100 plus million units that PlayStation and Nintendo are, right? And if you're an Xbox consumer, I don't see why that matters to you. You're not a Microsoft shareholder. You should not be
Exactly.
concerned with the console sales. The console, for years now, has just been one part of the Xbox ecosystem. Their strategy has long shifted away from being about just the box. It is about Xbox being able to be played across a multitude of devices and Xbox Game Pass. That has long been their strategy. That'll long continue to be their strategy. So the fact that people are still focusing on sales of a console as if it matters. If you play on PC, you are very much an Xbox gamer if you are using the Game Pass app over on PC. I do not see a difference. I think the console is for the Xbox gamer that is like, I want a affordable. I don't want to have to go build a PC because in order to play the games you're going to be able to play on this $500 box, you're going to have to ship out a ton of money to be able to get the same
Right.
PC performance. You just are. So whether you're playing on cloud, whether you're playing on your console, whether you're playing on your PC, you're all in the Xbox ecosystem. That is their strategy. They want to increase the amount of people playing on any device. It doesn't mean Xbox consoles are going away. Phil even said the console player base
Yeah.
is the core of their whole
We're the
business, right?
enthusiasts.
We're the enthusiasts. The console people, they're going to continue to cater to us. They're going to continue to make sure we have the best experience, whether that's the UI refresh that's
Mhm.
coming, whether it's making sure the games play as good as they possibly can on the hardware that we have, making sure we have the best hardware that we can for a console generation. They're still fully committed to that. And the fact that people took this and spun it as Xbox has given up on making great games, we're only going to get 6 and 7s out of 10s from now. Like, that's not what Phil said. That's not at all what the reality of the situation is going to be. It's not what the reality of the situation has been. I'm very annoyed at the content creator space that we're running with that. But
Yeah.
I it, yeah, no, you can go. You can go. I got more to say, but you can go
The
from
other
there.
thing that really frustrates me, and it's something that happens in our community in the gaming sphere and the gaming enthusiast sphere, is a lot of people complain about gaming executives, heads of development studios not being transparent, not talking to us about the reality of situations. And then when they do, we do nothing but attack them. Right. And this isn't me trying to defend Xbox. Phil Spencer's fine. He's going to be fine. I'm not trying to do any console war crap here. Okay. I'd be the same. I'd be saying the same thing if Jim Ryan got clickbaited to hell after something he said if he was trying to be honest about something. Right. And I think when we get this type of honesty from a gaming executive, we should applaud it. We should be happy about it. Obviously, we're not going to applaud the failures because that's a horrible thing. We don't want to see games fail. We don't want to see these companies do bad things, but we should applaud that he came out here and said all of these things. We shouldn't be attacking him in this community. And I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah. So for me personally, I agree with what Phil said. If you look at the context, if you just say, if you here, I'm going to read this. I see it out there. I see commentary that if you just build great games, everything would turn around. It's just not true that if we go off and build great games, all of us, and then if you stop at it's just not true, which a lot of people have done and don't examine any further, then you get the
Yep.
fanboy clickety clackety stuff that's like Xbox doesn't care about making great games. They say it doesn't help, it doesn't matter. The
And that's
rest of
why we
this
get these curated PR statements instead of people just talking to us.
the
That's the
But the
problem.
rest of the statement is what matters. All of a sudden, you're going to see a console share shift in a dramatic way. That is what he's saying. He's saying we're going to make great games, but do not expect that just having great games will cause us to win the console
Yep.
sales race. You can't pick and choose you can't just pick and choose statements out of context. It changes the whole thing. So I agree with him. If Starfield's an 11 out of 10, you're not going to see Xbox suddenly jump into first place in the sales. You're not going to see
Yeah.
them catch up the 15 million deficit they are behind PSI, right? You're not going to see it. I
No.
guarantee you. You know what you will see? A big bump in Game Pass numbers.
Exactly.
That is what they care about. They
Mhm.
don't care about the console sales. I don't care about the console sales. I don't really care about Game Pass numbers personally. As long as the service is benefiting me as a consumer, I don't really care how many people are subscribed to it. But that is their strategy. More Game Pass subscribers. And if those numbers can go up, great. There's going to obviously be a plateau at some point. But then you need to figure out how do we break that plateau? How even if it's just a little bit. And
Exactly. Yeah.
that is where the consistently great games needs to come in. banger after banger needs to be hitting the service. And he said it. He sees the future, the quarters, the things they have coming, a big game every quarter. If those can consistently hit those eight, nines, tens range, then Game Pass, no, even after tons of people have subscribed to it, there's still going to be new people coming in all the time because you're delivering that consistent quality. So I think delivering great games solves that issue. It does not solve the winning console sales.
Nor will it ever. Yeah.
That's I I'm trying to think what else. Like I'm literally exhausted from seeing this
Um,
interview.
I guess we could touch on the point he made about how, because this is another thing I've seen a lot of people run with, and how Xbox lost the most important generation of gaming with the Xbox One generation.
Which they did.
They did. And I think that's a very like eye-opening moment for us to actually see Phil Spencer admit to that. And I think he made a great point in that that was the generation that we were building our digital libraries. There's people like me who are stubborn and stuck with physical copies, but 99% of y'all went off and started buying digital games, right? That generation was the main point, that main inflection point where people started transitioning from physical copies of video games to digital copies of video games. And he made a great point in that more people were buying the PlayStation 4 than the Xbox One. The Xbox One had a very bad launch.
Mhm.
PlayStation 4 had a great launch. PlayStation 4 had a really good lineup of video games, and a lot of people went to that ecosystem, built their libraries, and they just don't want to make the switch and have to transfer everything, which makes absolute sense. I think that's a clarity moment for Phil Spencer. They probably understand that internally. It's nice to see him actually come out and say, yeah, that's one of the big problems, and I think
Mhm.
that was him telling us a big reason of why Xbox probably doesn't expect to win in sales anytime soon.
I agreed with them about that point because as someone, listen, I've said it multiple times. Like I almost stopped playing video games during the Xbox One generation because
Right.
I thought it was terrible. There were a
I
few
basically
games.
did.
There were yeah, there were a few games that I loved, like a Plague Tale, Hellblade, like Celeste was one of like those experiences that kept me there. And I was like, okay, so I had a lot of faith going into this generation. I still have a lot of faith. I think Xbox has done very well this generation so far. Like I'm happy being a Series X owner.
Oh yeah.
However, I did buy a PlayStation 5 to go along with my Series X. This is the first time I've played in the PlayStation ecosystem. You as well, Ethan. You as well.
Yep.
We've picked up both consoles because I didn't want to lose all the games I got over the years. Like my Xbox
Yeah.
is still very much my primary console because I have built up hundreds of games on there. My friends play on there. It's what I'm accustomed to. Like there is a sense of just this is what I've known. This is where everything like is. So no matter what, Xbox is always going to be my first go to because I
Exactly.
have the most games there. However, my PlayStation now, like I'm inclined to carry it forward because I've built up hundreds of games over there now. It's like it's no longer a case of well, I can just leave PlayStation behind next generation. I do think this digital library building does lead people to want to invest in to stay in the ecosystem because you've
Yep.
invested so much. Like whether it's claiming the PS Plus games, whether it's claiming the all the JRPGs I have, or that like I would hate to lose everything I've built on PlayStation or Xbox. So next generation, I'm still very much like I think I'll probably get both again.
Yeah.
And I do this with PC. I claim most of the free games on the Epic Game Store. I just claimed KO the Kangaroo. I have KO the Kangaroo on my
Yeah, you do.
Xbox. I have
And it was terrible.
I have Tales of Symphonia on my PC, my Xbox, and my Switch. Okay? Like it's about being able to play the games I want basically anywhere is kind of
Yeah.
where I'm getting to. And I think Xbox makes that the easiest. That's why I'm very interested in this Asus ROG Ally
Mm.
handheld that's getting revealed the day when this goes live. So it'll already be revealed
Yep.
because you can play your Xbox Play Anywhere games. You can play your Steam games, your Epic games. So it's just another way where it's like if I don't feel like sitting at my PC, I already have a whole library from multiple platforms ready to go in one place. Like I think that's awesome. I think the convenience of that is awesome. And PlayStation hasn't quite got there yet. Like I know they've put their games on PC, right? But it's not play anywhere. Like if I own them on PlayStation, I can't just boot them up on my PC, right? Their cloud streaming isn't very good. There's a whole bunch, and that's not an attack on PlayStation. They just have a different strategy. They're more of the high end like console
Right.
first, and it's working for them. I enjoy my PS5, but I do also really love the convenience of being able to play games wherever I want, whenever I want.
Yeah. It's
It's it
nice.
it's a plus for me. So I I'm sick of just people taking things out of context and
Yeah.
not really understanding what's being said.
Well, hopefully going forward, if we go past this Activision deal, Redfall's over, we can start talking about more positive things because this has been a rough couple weeks for our community in Xbox. It's kind of sucked, but we got to move on from it, learn from the mistakes, and
Mhm.
play more great video games.
Yeah, there are tons of great video games. I'm excited because next month is really when I think the year's kicking into high gear. Like we've had some big titles, but I feel like June is really when we're kicking into high gear for the big games that are going to be coming out. And I'm excited to just talk about games because, yes,
Oh
we
yeah,
cover the news here, but my favorite part of the show is when we're just talking about games. Like
yeah,
that is what I love talking about the games we're playing, why they're awesome, why they're not awesome, anything of like that. So,
yeah.
um, I don't really have much more to say. You can go check out Phil Spencer's full interview if you want more
Oh yeah, go
context. But
watch that. There's a lot of really great things in that interview, worth a watch.
we have listener questions, so let's do that to round out the show, Ethan. Uh, Two questions, both coming from Taylor, host of our No Limit show. He says, over under 12 weeks for Redfall to be, quote, fixed. And what is your favorite vampire representation in media? Mine is the Castlevania series.
Is a good answer for that. I don't care. I don't care if Redfall gets fixed. Because honestly, by the time Redfall gets fixed, guess what? Starfield's going to be right around the corner. And there's going to be absolutely no world that I live in where I'm going to be hopping on Redfall when Starfield's coming out. So, um,
I,
I
I,
would say over. Honestly, the what you described, Kevin, was a fundamentally broken game.
I was
It
going to say,
seems like
I
it's gonna
don't,
take a lot of time to button that thing up. Will it have a No Man's Sky moment? Maybe. Who
I
knows? But at
doubt it.
that point, it's gonna be off of my radar. I'm gonna have moved on to greater and bigger pastures, right? And so, quite frankly, nothing I really care about. Favorite vampire representation in media? That's an off the wall question. I gotta think about that. You talk about Redfall while I think about that.
It's definitely over 12 weeks, and that's if it ever gets fixed. I personally don't see it having a No Man's Sky redemption type arc. I think there's fundamental flaws with how the game is designed, the gameplay loop, the just general like they can fix AI, right? They can fix technical issues. They can make a 60 F, but that doesn't fix the people like me who it's just not fun to play. Like there's a lot that from the gameplay creative process, it just wasn't there for me. And again, I know there are people
Yeah.
that really are having fun with it. I'm happy for you. I wish I was one of you, but I'm not. So for me, I don't know if it ever gets fixed. My favorite vampire representation in media, Underworld.
Ooh, good shout out. I've watched
I
Underworld like 30
l-
times.
I love the Underworld series. Kate
I've watched those
Beckinsale,
movies like
those
30
movies.
times. Yeah.
Yo, that was my childhood crush right there. Gonna be real with you.
I guess my answer would be my favorite vampire piece of vampire media would be What We Do in the Shadows, which is both a old movie but also a new TV series on Hulu. It is absolutely hilarious. It's a comedy. It's about a bunch of vampires that sort of shack up as like roommates in New York City, and it's just them going on these stupid adventures, and they have their familiar Guillermo who kind of tries to
Mhm.
help them out, and he really wants to be a vampire. One of them is Nandor the Relentless, like an ancient Arabian prince that like has seduced thousands of women and killed millions of people, but now he's just like taking the bus around New York and trying to figure out what to do with this. It's just this really goofy show, and it's really funny. So that's probably my favorite piece of vampire media right now that I can think of. But
Also,
if I were to depict a perfect vampire in media, like what I think a vampire would be. It would be a creature that's extremely noble, but at the same time can be really, really brutal and violent. So I think of Castlevania is one of those things, but I also think of like the Elder Scrolls series where the vampires are very sort of uppity and like, posh and all that, but they get really violent and dangerous.
Also, shout out Blade 1 through 3, the Wesley
Good
Snipes.
shout out, Blade.
Great movies. Great movies. Great comics, but I really love the movies too. His next question: what third-party non-Activision owned franchises would you like to see as exclusives on Xbox, like how Shin Megami Tensei 5 is exclusive to Switch, or Final Fantasy 7 Remake, Final Fantasy 16 is to PlayStation?
You and I both have all three consoles, so I think we're in a privileged place where we can say it doesn't really matter what's exclusive or not, business wise or something. I mean, I would think Xbox would want to go after something that has a large fan base that's really entrenched and likes buying a lot of releases, kind of like how they wanted Call of Duty. Maybe Assassin's Creed is that type of a game. You have, I know you're not a fan of Ubisoft, Kevin, but there's millions of us out there who buy Assassin's Creed every time it comes out, and we play it for hundreds and hundreds of hours. And if you get a fan base like that, you're going to get a lot of eyes on your service. Maybe Assassin's Creed would be a good way to go. And Ubisoft has a relationship with Xbox. They've put a lot of the Assassin's Creeds on Game Pass already.
I'm also going to pick a Ubisoft game.
No, you're not.
Splinter Cell.
Ooh, interesting.
Bring it back home, baby.
Give me
Start
a
on the
stealth.
Xbox.
Yeah,
Let's bring it back. Splinter Cell series.
it's old school.
If there's one third party series that nobody can complain if that Splinter Cell's the one for me.
Nobody
Can't
can
complain.
complain if all of the Assassin's Creeds came either, right? Like everyone likes at least one of them.
I don't.
You don't even like any of the originals?
No. No,
Man,
no.
Kevin, that's crazy.
They had Prince of Persia, made 3 awesome games, and then it was like, what if we take the bones of this and then ruin it? Good
Kevin, you're
job.
breaking my heart right now. You're breaking my heart.
But that's all we have for this week, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Ethan, where can people find you?
On the Discord, come say hi.
And you can find me at the Muffin Mon over on Twitter. It's 17I and 0 7A. Follow us at Save Game Media on Twitter to stay up to date with all the latest. Thank you for checking us out. Until next week, we'll see you. Goodbye.
Peace.